You know, I don't think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I've ever done a video explaining what I'm about to explain to you. So this will be brand new. What's up? I am Iron Tamer Dave Whitley, and it warms my heart to see so many people on various social media platforms putting up videos doing bent presses. When I first started doing this, very few people even knew what a bent press was, and it is by far my favorite lift of all time. So seeing a lot of folks all around the world doing it warms my heart. It also brings with it a series of problems that typically a sizable portion of the population of people who are attempting to do it will run into, because it's a strange movement when you first are exposed to it. So what I'm going to do today is address one of the things that I see popping up very often in tutorial videos from people who are well-meaning but just don't quite know how this works. And it has to do with the position of the hips and the shoulders in arrangement to the kettlebell or the weight, whatever it might be. We're going to use kettlebells today, as we are going from the rack position into, or from the catching position of the rack into the bent press rack proper. And what that looks like is, we'll see people, they'll bring a kettlebell up into just a standard rack. Cool, we could go anywhere from here. And then they'll do this to get it behind them. You see what I did there? I turned, and this hip came forward and that hip went back. Now if I keep my hips where they are, or put my hips back where they were, but keep my shoulder where it was, or where it is, I've only moved the kettlebell this far behind me in relation to my spine. And the position that we want to see it in is way back here. I'm going to straighten my hips out, and you can see what I'm doing here. I'll actually drop the kettlebell if I'm not. See how far back that is? So it's the difference between here and here, which matters a great deal once the torso is underneath the elbow, because we want to stack the bones and create that skeletal structure, that straight line of support for the weight that goes from the forearm through the elbow to the hip down to the foot. You've probably heard me say that before if you've seen any of my bent press videos. So when it comes up and we turn this way, the issue with it, there's twofold. One, we're not getting the weight far enough behind us to set up the next part of the rack. I like to address that by bringing this elbow up and back. And very often when I teach people who haven't done it before, I'll really exaggerate that motion and bring it up and back and turn the chest at the same time. From the side, it looks like this, way up and back. Now, once you're familiar with it, you don't have to make that big of a motion. I call it a chicken wing. You don't have to make it that big. You rarely see me do one that big when I'm actually doing a rep, but it's a great teaching tool to exaggerate that path that the elbow takes and then dial it in over time as you get more comfortable. Because the important part is where we land back here, and we have to have enough room through this middle section to get the elbow there. And if we're dragging the tricep across the ribs and across the lat kind of stays on that side of the arm, and what I want is for the majority of the lat to be on this side of the arm. So that's the first part. The second part is the rotation should occur from the hips and the thoracic spine. So if I move here, I've moved my hip. My front hip goes forward, my back hip goes back. What I want, or my unloaded hip goes forward, my loaded hip goes back. What I want to do is exactly the opposite of that. The first thing I'm going to do is pivot. For me, I pivot my feet about 45 degrees to my left if I'm lifting in my right hand. Chicken wing back, and now from here, this hip hinges pretty deep. This hip actually comes forward of the other one. And now I've got my base of support right there, and I can just fold into position there. So even if you're uninitiated and don't know this lift, tell me which one looks stronger to your eye. Bring the weight up here, and I go like that and start trying to press. You see how I've got one knee forward of the other one kind of bent? That rotation is coming from the knees in that case. And I don't think anything good can happen from that. So from here to here, with this knee forward to this one, what I want is to go from here to here. Now my feet turned out of frame and pointed that way, but this hip is now forward of the other hip, and I can fold into that position quite easily. And I'm getting out of my own way, not jamming into my own body. Let me know if that makes sense. Let me know if you have more questions. Again, I don't think I've ever explained that on video before, even in like the Taming the Bent Press video. I don't think I talked about that, because I don't think that it was as prevalent then as it is now. Of course, that was 10 years ago. Everybody didn't have video and social media accounts that show videos and all that sort of stuff. So play with it. Let me know what you think, and let me know if you have any questions.